Anne Stonehouse. In this TAPS we're going to be focusing on the concept of children's agency as it applies to children under 16 to 18 months. Although we believe that most of the ideas we'll be sharing today apply to children of any age.
My name's Belinda George. I've been in this profession for 10 years. I've been diploma qualified for the past 7. Part of my role at my current service, as well as working on the floor with under 3s, has been to mentor and to train my co-educators, particularly in the area of programming.
The concept of agency in the early years learning framework links to many other concepts. It certainly relates to belonging, being and becoming. It links to the 5 learning outcomes, and it also has many implications for daily practice with very young children. The concept of agency is also very closely related to quality areas 1, 3 and 5 in the National Quality Standard, and there's a specific element in the National Quality Standard 1.1.6 that mentions agency specifically. And it reads, each child's agency is promoted, enabling them to make choices and decisions and influence events in their world. So it's quite a critical concept. As we're talking about agency in this conversation, we're also going to be talking about what it means to work well with babies and toddlers. There's a kind of theme running through our conversation about the perspective that educators need to take to get the most rewards out of their work and more importantly to support children's learning. We're going to talk about high expectations, and we're going to talk about how important it is for educators to keep learning and to learn as much as they can about babies and toddlers learning in order to do their jobs well. Belinda, some educators seem to find it very challenging to see how the early years learning framework and even some parts of the National Quality Standard relate to babies and toddlers. And alongside that, and maybe part of that, is that some people within our profession seem to still have the attitude that working with babies and toddlers is simpler, is not as intellectually demanding as working with older children. In other words, that it's kind of less exciting and less meaningful to work with babies and toddlers. Do you agree with that? And if you do, why do you think that's so?
I do agree with that, Anne. I think that I think it is still the perception that working with babies and toddlers is less intellectual work. Often because of this, the less experienced educators, perhaps first year qualified or unqualified educators, are left to run the babies' rooms. And because I think there's still that notion that the most important or only role in a baby's room is the caring role, to keep them safe and to keep them healthy, fed and watered. I think because their learning is more subtle, you need to know what you're looking for in order to see it. And we'll see some great examples of this in the vignettes.
Mm-hmm. There's that notion that you need to know a lot more, you need to be, in a sense, a lot cleverer to work well with babies and toddlers because their learning is more subtle.
More subtle, yeah.
In the EYLF, there are a number of references to the concept of agency and related concepts. For example, in the EYLF, there's information about the importance of children being able to make decisions and choices in their daily experience, the importance of them having a sense of influencing and making an impact on their world. There's the notion of children as active participants and decision makers, of teachers as well as learners, teachers not only of other children but of adults as well. So those are some general concepts that are in the EYLF. And I wonder, do you see babies and toddlers in those concepts? And if you do, how? And can you give some examples of how you see babies and toddlers in those ideas?
I do. I know in conversations with other educators who work with babies, I know one of their favourite parts of it is going on that journey with the babies as they learn and discover new things. Like you said, the babies as as teachers and educators as well, taking the adults on a different journey. I think offering the same choices that you would offer older children in your room and in your program, like choosing their own toys, choosing to play inside or outside, deciding where to be in the room, in the space, offering a variety at mealtime, so choosing their own foods, responding to their individual routines and needs rather than putting everyone to sleep at the same time or feeding everybody at the same time at morning tea. Of course, this is only exercising a child's agency if the adults are responsive to it and encouraging it.
Mm-hmm. So there's some real choices that educators can make as they go about their daily work with children. And from what you were saying, I was thinking that a lot of it is about, first of all, really knowing the child very deeply and very broadly.
Absolutely.
That concept of knowing the child in context, because you can't pick up on those cues. You can't offer sensible choices to children unless you really know them very well. So it's not just about some formula about this is how we set up a room or this is how we run our program, but it's linked to that concept of responsiveness.
I think being responsive adults play a really big part in supporting a child's sense of agency.
Yeah, so it's kind of knowledgeable responsiveness though, isn't it? That you can't be responsive unless you really know the child. I mean, it's interesting that point that you just made, that babies and toddlers particularly can only exercise agency if adults allow them to and enable them to and respond to what they're saying about what they want to do and what they need. And that makes me think that the concept of agency is in some ways closely related to the image of the child, which is a core part of the early years learning framework and relates very directly to some parts of the National Quality Standard. You've given some examples of, I guess, of an image of babies and toddlers that promotes agency, that educators, the image that educators who encourage that sense of agency must have. But sometimes I guess we've both seen programs where the babies and toddlers were quite passive, that it's almost, I've seen some where I think it's almost like a baby factory or something where they're being processed and the attitude seems to be, let's get them through this as quickly and efficiently as possible. What do you think, what kind of image do you think those educators have in those kinds of programs?
I do think that there is a common image of the child as a capable and a confident learner. I think unfortunately this image doesn't usually extend to babies and toddlers. Often, like we said, it's about routine and moving babies through the day. They need to be fed, they need to have a sleep, and it's really by the clock. And sometimes I've seen it's like the children are getting in the way of the routine of the day rather than the routine of the day working around and for the babies and toddlers in the room.
That's an interesting contrast about the children getting in the way of the routines when, one of the things we would all say is that children are the focus, children are at the centre, but sometimes it doesn't feel that way in a baby or toddler's room.
No, and it's an easy thing to say, but for it to really be reflected in your practice, I think with babies and toddlers, it's something that people find particularly challenging.
Yeah. You gave some examples before, and I guess the picture I had in mind when you were giving some of those examples was of older babies or younger toddlers. What about agency, evidence of that sense of agency or encouraging that sense of agency in very young babies, say babies under 6 months old? Is it something that's there, do you think, in very young babies, or does it appear only when they're mobile and a bit more active? So suddenly I've got agency.
No, I think, like we said before, it is much subtler. I think agency in a child up to 6 months can be seen in their gaze. Who are they following? Whose attention are they trying to get? In their smile, who are they trying to engage with and get attention, and who are they not giving that attention to, and who are they cutting that interaction off with? An example is when a stranger approaches, or somebody that they then unsure of or they don't want in their space, then a baby will often make that quite clear by turning away or not responding, and having control, I suppose, of that interaction.
You mentioned, you just mentioned when babies smile or laugh, when young babies smile or laugh, and it always strikes me when you see that happening, whether it's in a early learning setting or just out in the community or at a family gathering, there's no question of who's in charge of that interaction, because when a baby gives a slight smile or a slight laugh, and people will go to extreme, bizarre lengths to get that baby to do that again. And you often think there's some babies that, okay, I can get a lot out of this person if I don't smile again really easily or quickly. That's agency,
Yeah.
and I think it's a good example also of that's evidence of a really important area of learning, but one that people might not identify as that.
As learning.
And and that if you wanted to, you could link it very clearly to a number of concepts in the framework and a number of items in the NQS.
It links very closely to outcome 4, confident and involved learners.
Yeah, so that sense, even when you're a very young baby, that beginning sense of, wow, I can make a difference.
Yeah.
I can have some influence over people.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the vignettes, at the end of this segment, one of the things that you'll see is a variety of, I guess, ordinary, everyday events that happen in an infant toddler program, things you'd see anywhere in a family daycare setting or a childcare centre setting for babies and toddlers, but that are evidence of children displaying that sense of agency, and educators encouraging that sense of agency.
About this one. Belinda's turn? Yeah. Smash, 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 smash. Tommy's turn?
Sometimes having a trusted adult to play with, or even to be nearby to respond and maybe to extend, to offer help and encouragement, is what's needed to encourage agency. In the first 2 vignettes, an educator interacts in play with a baby, both initiating and responding, but overall, both educators are taking their leads from the children.
Good job.
Hey mate, how are you? Yeah, you're climbing. Clever.
In all 3 of the vignettes, you get the feeling that the child is controlling the experience more than the educator. The child takes the lead. Educators leave space for babies to respond and to initiate and encourage their ideas by picking up on them. In the 3rd vignette, the educator is close by, ready to help, and ready to support and encourage a child to meet a challenge.